Hey there, interwebs, and welcome to the final episode of How Fascinating on YouTube, at least for a little while. This was actually originally intended to be the first episode of March of the Megafauna back in early 2020, but mice and men, etc. If you were watching this channel back then, or if you know me, then you know that I generally attempt to promote the idea that wild animals are just critters trying to live their lives and not malicious monsters. That being said, some are more frightening than others. I'd rather have to get a distressed bird out of my house than an angry tiger, and Komodo dragons are goddamn terrifying. If you don't believe me, here are 5 frightening facts about the world's largest lizard. Number 1. They're the world's largest lizard. Although there is no single agreed-upon threshold weight for an animal to qualify as megafauna, Komodo dragons do meet the contextual definitions of functional megafauna and apex megafauna, being apex predators and the largest species in their taxonomic group whose large size presents identifiable evolutionary advantages. They're also a possible example of island gigantism, which tends to be seen in reptiles, including birds like the Philippine eagle, and otherwise small mammals. Because large terrestrial mammalian predators like bears and panthers struggle to reach islands, less efficient predators like reptiles can get bigger to fill that ecological niche at the top of the food chain. I have to say a possible example because it's actually more complicated than it first appears. On the surface, it seems simple enough. They're the world's largest living lizards, far larger than other closely related monitor lizards in the genus Varanus, and live on an isolated island. Ergo, island gigantism, but note my usage of the phrase largest living lizards. The largest known lizard ever is the very closely related Megalania, Varanus priscus, which might have grown to a whopping 7 meters, or 23 feet, in length and lived on mainland Australia roughly 1 million years ago. That being said, Australia is generally regarded as the world's largest island, with a notable lack of large mammalian predators, so Megalania could still be considered a case of island gigantism for this commensurately giant island. Moreover, fossil evidence indicates that these varanids evolved their large size in Australia before dispersing north to smaller islands throughout Indonesia. Thus, if we accept Megalania as an example of island gigantism, that makes the Komodo dragon an example of both island gigantism and island dwarfism, when organisms evolve smaller adult sizes on islands due to fewer available resources. Oh, also, lizards don't exist. In The Perils of Paraphyly, aka How Fascinating episode 77, we discussed how both reptiles and lizards are paraphyletic groupings. The former is sauropsids, excluding birds, and the latter is squamates, excluding snakes and amphisbaenians. Komodo dragons are more closely related to rattlesnakes, for example, than they are to tegu, and tegu are more closely related to Komodo dragons and snakes than they are to geckos. Regardless, Komodo dragons are still among the biggest reptiles in general, being eclipsed in size only by crocodilians and some of the largest species of turtles. The common ostrich, the heaviest extant avian reptile, is the only bird species on par with them for mass. Number 2. They're incredibly well-armed, and well-armored. Their powerful claws are often 5 to 6 centimeters in length, making them about as long as those of an American black bear or bald eagle, but this is nothing compared to their teeth. Like sharks, Komodo dragons are constantly shedding and replacing their teeth, every 40 days in fact, and they maintain up to 5 replacements for each position. Additionally, the orange coloration on the serrations and tips is iron-enriched enamel. A 2024 study published in Nature Ecology and Evolution found these teeth are edged with iron to maintain their sharp cutting surfaces. That's literally metal, and we're not done yet. Their skin is covered in armored scales, which are reinforced with bony plates called osteoderms, the same kind of natural armor possessed by crocodilians. Moreover, these plates ossify more extensively as the lizard grows, meaning the oldest and largest have the toughest armor, kind of like fantasy dragons. They also feature on Indonesia's 50 rupiah coin, which looks like fantasy money, as does Slovenia's 10 stotinov coin with its ohm, which local legend claims is a baby dragon. Number 3. These giant, well-armed lizards are also venomous, which feels like overkill. In general, venomous animals tend to be small, either in overall size or relative to comparable species. The heaviest terrestrial arthropod, the phylum including spiders, scorpions, wasps, centipedes, et al., is the non-venomous coconut crab, while the biggest venomous arthropods are huntsmen and giant centipedes. Don't get me wrong, they're still pants-wettingly large, but they're very much the exceptions compared to their kin, like black widows, and even a spider the size of a dinner plate is an order of magnitude smaller than the feliform carnivores that have free reign of my house. In the realm of vertebrates, most venomous mammal species are wee little shrews, and the venomous fish species aren't much bigger, leaving us with snakes as the last major consideration. Yes, some venomous snakes can be very large. The king cobra, for example, can stand up to look an adult human in the eye, but remember that everything is relative. The largest snakes are all constrictors, anacondas, pythons, and boas. My point is, the only venomous vertebrates which aren't small are squamates, and amongst snakes, the venomous ones are still relatively small. So why does the world's largest lizard have venom? Oh, and before you say they don't, they just have incredibly toxic saliva due to chunks of rotting meat getting caught in their teeth, you should know that theory has been pretty thoroughly debunked. they actually have relatively good oral hygiene. After eating, a Komodo dragon will spend 10 to 15 minutes licking their lips and wiping their mouth on leaves. They also don't bite their prey, then follow at a distance waiting for it to die of infection. Research conducted in the past 20 years clearly indicates the presence of venom glands in their mouths, although there is no clear, unambiguous evidence of this venom being used to kill prey rather than damage from the bite itself, i.e. blood loss and shock, and a delivery mechanism has yet to be identified. Their saliva is tinged blood red through feeding, however. Number 4. Speaking of Komodo dragons' feeding habits, they can consume up to 80% of their body mass in a single meal. For large prey, they hold down the carcass with their forelimbs and rip off chunks of it, but for smaller prey, they swallow the carcass whole. Because this is a lengthy process, 15 to 20 minutes for a goat, they may attempt to expedite it by slamming the carcass against a tree to physically ram it down their throat, and they can do this with such force that it sometimes uproots the tree. The trouble isn't over once the meal is fully inside them, however. Being ectothermic, the lizard must then find a nice sunny spot to bask, raising its metabolism to speed digestion. If it doesn't, the carcass could start to rot inside its stomach and poison it. After digestion, it regurgitates a gastric pellet of indigestible material such as horns, teeth, and hair covered in a foul-smelling mucus. Yummy. Also, they're cannibals, with juveniles of their own species comprising 10% of an adult's diet. Number 5. Our fifth and final fun fact is more accurately a fecund fact, because even a female Komodo dragon which has never known a male, in the biblical sense or otherwise, may still lay eggs which hatch viable offspring. If you're the kind of person who watches reptile fact videos, and you are, you probably already know about whiptail lizards. Per Barclay and Cole, 13 species of whiptail lizards in the genus Aspidoscelis are unisexual, entirely female, and reproduce through obligate parthenogenesis. This is a natural form of asexual reproduction in which the embryo develops directly from the egg without need for fertilization by sperm. Actually, asexual may not be the right term for it, as desert grassland whiptails, A. uniparens, have been observed performing pseudocopulation, which is basically lizard tribbing, which promotes fertilization during ovulation. This could more accurately be called unisexual reproduction because sexual activity is occurring, just with only one sex. The resulting offspring are, predictably, always biological clones of their mother, but Komodo dragons do things a little differently. First of all, they can, and usually do, reproduce sexually, but when they reproduce by parthenogenesis, all of the offspring are male. Yeah, that confused me too at first, so let me explain. First of all, they don't have the mammalian XY chromosomal sex determination system. Instead, they're on the ZW system, where ZWs are female and ZZs are male. Next, unfertilized Komodo dragon eggs can go from haploid cells to diploid cells by undergoing chromosome duplication without cell division, essentially copy-pasting the genetic information they've already got. A female Komodo dragon provides her progeny with one of her two sex chromosomes, either the Z or the W, so after duplication the eggs are either ZZ and become males, or WW and fail to develop further. This means that a single female Komodo dragon, through a little bit of Virgin Mary and a lot of Oedipus Rex action, can re-establish a breeding population of both males and females, although Oedipusaurus Rex would suffer from an extreme genetic bottleneck. Lastly, a bonus factlet. Roughly 60,000 years ago, the tiny hominids called Homo floresiensis, or hobbits, shared the island of Flores with Komodo dragons' ancestors. And by shared, I mean came into violent contact with. Modern-day Komodo dragons are known to attack humans, so there's little doubt they would have also preyed on our diminutive cousins, but the remains of Komodo dragons found in the Liangbois cave, which hobbits are known to have inhabited, indicate that hobbits also ate the giant lizards on occasion, either by predation or scavenging. Either way, it's safe to say that once upon a time, hobbits really did fight dragons. Thanks for watching, don't forget to follow me on Tumblr, and have a fascinating day.